Hi, everybody. Welcome to our wordcast. And today we have an amazing person, a very good friend, uh, Joseph Wilson, as a guest on our podcast today. He himself does so many podcasts, and you can you can check him out on his podcast. We will give you the details later on. But this guy is, I see him as a really purpose driven man. So we call this podcast as pursuing your purpose in life. So he's going to share today some awesome stuff that we can feed on. But before we move ahead, let's welcome Joseph Wilson. And thank you so much, man, for coming uh, and being part of this podcast and really taking time out, um, this moment to share. So I won't speak much. I'll allow you to speak today because you do a lot of podcasts and you make other people speak. Today is your day. So so yeah, go ahead. Tell me something
Man,
about, yeah.
you cut out in between, so I don't know if you said anything else, but
Is
thank
that
you so much for having me. What an honor for me to be here and be on the other side. And thank you, man. I appreciate it. Really appreciate it, and I'm excited for this conversation.
uh, so so yeah, let's begin with uh, how what why are you doing what you are doing? Like, give me some background about yourself.
Do you want me to start at the beginning?
Yeah, from the genesis.
So I was actually born in Hyderabad, and I have two older sisters. My mom and dad, we all actually moved to New Zealand in '97. So last week was 23 years since we've been here in New Zealand,
Yep.
and I grew up, around church, and I grew up around, I guess you would call it an Anglican or Presbyterian kind of church, and I always knew about God and all that stuff. And I came here to New Zealand, and I was still going to youth groups and home groups and stuff. And as I grew older and I started going to university, my I wanted to explore more. So I started to really, I don't know, I didn't like the fact that I saw a lot of hypocrisy, and the religious aspect really annoyed me a little bit. And people would say to me when I was younger, they would say, "Oh, God's going to use you. You're going to, be a pastor." And I used to get really angry because all the pastors I saw were like 50, 50, 60 years old. And I'm like, this guy had all his fun and he finished his fun and now he's becoming a holy man, I'll do the same thing. And so I never actually realized how real God was at that time. I never had an encounter. I never saw miracles or anything like that. So when I came to New Zealand, I started drinking, partying, clubbing in university, and yeah, that was my life for a little while. And a friend of mine invited me to a Pentecostal church, and that was the first time I went to a crazy church. Like people are like happy and they're worshiping. I thought people were on drugs because they looked too happy. And one girl just was singing in tongues and singing to God, and she was, in her own buzz one day. And I was still drunk from the night before. And I don't know why I decided to go to church that day, but I'd been partying all night on Saturday, and I went to church still drunk. And while she was singing, I felt a heat go through my body, and I sobered up.
Yeah.
And I remember being really scared at that time because there was nobody near me, nobody touched me, nobody prayed for me. And God started to show me my whole life at that time. I had an encounter, and that's when the whole change began in 2008. And
Wow.
yeah, since then, I just surrendered everything to Him. And now I am married. I have three beautiful daughters. One is 5, one is 2.5, and one is 5 months old. And I run a couple of businesses, and I do online coaching and mentoring. And I'm facilitating a house church here in Auckland, New Zealand.
Wow. So you have Indian background, right?
Yeah, so my dad's Telugu from Andhra Pradesh, from Hyderabad, and my mum is from Kerala.
Wow. And there was a shift from India to New Zealand because of your studies, or was it something else?
No, my dad always wanted to leave. He was just looking for a good country, and actually he wanted to go to Australia, but it wasn't working out at that time. So he thought we'll come to New Zealand and then go to Australia. But God had other plans.
Wow, wow, it's awesome. So, you were in a particular church, and when you encountered the Lord, you came into the church, you started experience all the religion out there and all that stuff. And how did you transition from that phase to what you are doing right now?
So when I had this encounter, I got really curious and I actually said to God at the end of that encounter, I said, if you're really real, then I'm giving you 1 month. I'll come to every church service, I'll go to every home group and show me how real you are and I'll give you my life. And I don't know why I said that. Like that's not normal language for me, but it just came
Mhm.
out of my mouth, you know?
Wow.
So during that time, my pastor, he was from America and our church was seeing crazy, crazy signs and wonders and the atmosphere was amazing. So we had about 300 people in our church, but more than 70-75% got saved in that church. And they had radical encounters in their church. So
Mhm.
my pastor was really fiery. It's like we had revival every Sunday. And so I just grabbed everything he was giving us. And the prophetic was just flowing in our church, the miracle signs, wonders happening all the time. And so it was really easy for me to just step into that, you know? And
Mhm.
so I started to believe everything my pastor said, and I'd read it in the Bible. I'd never read the Bible before. I used to read the Bible to fall asleep. This is a funny story. My mom had this massive Bible, like it's like this big,
Mhm.
and it's this King James, old King
Mhm.
James. So sometimes when I'd have trouble sleeping, I would go get that big Bible, open it, and
Mhm.
I would read 1 or 2 lines, and after a few lines, I'm out. You know? So when I had this encounter, I bought myself a Bible, and I remember the first night I started reading it, I couldn't put it down. It was probably for 4 hours. I went through Genesis, Exodus. It was like a movie opened up for me, and it was really, really radical. And I think the church I got saved in had a lot to do with that, So it was normal to see miracles and healings and just believing God to do crazy things.
Yeah.
And so I used to be a door-to-door salesman at that time. I was selling cable TV and I was
Mhm.
selling Vodafone connections. And
Wow.
so my pastor would say, "Hey, lay hands on the sick; they'll recover." And Mark 16. And so I would practice these things, and I started to see people getting healed, and I was leading people to the Lord, and I was seeing how real God is outside of the building. And
Mhm.
that kind of really began my like an explosion of a journey for me.
Wow. Wow. So you came out of that church, right? And you're doing now home church and all that stuff.
Yeah, so that church was awesome, and it was great for 5 years. And then something happened in that church, and it caused me to see another side of leadership and of like we had the power, we had the presence. It was amazing, but relationship, deep connection, heart connection, yeah, it's not everywhere. And I realized that a lot of people around me were not interested in discipleship. So for me, when I had led people to the Lord, they would come to my house, I would go to their house, we would watch rugby together, we would play together, we would eat together. We became family, but I didn't realize that in the wider church that was not happening. So when a bit of chaos happened in the church, I started to see that that was not the case. And yeah, and then I went through a bit of a journey, and
Mhm.
I nearly wanted to quit. I didn't want to do anything to help people because I started to get in a bit of trouble because discipleship causes people to bond with you, and so they trust you. And when all this chaos was happening, people were coming to me because they trusted me, and I got accused of trying to split the church and all this kind of stuff, and it really shocked me, and I didn't know how to deal with what was happening. And to me, real relationship is really important. And I feel that's what's important even to God, even with people, real connection, outside of gifting, outside of
Mhm.
influence, actual heart to heart. So I started getting accused of things, and I was, when God released me, I wanted to quit everything, and then I had a few encounters that kind of brought me back and gave me new perspective. And
Mhm.
so that began my real journey into exploring the kingdom
Wow.
outside of a church context.
Wow.
What is the kingdom? And obviously, yeah, there's supernatural, there's the mystical elements, but what is the kingdom like you see in the book of Acts? And what is the kingdom expression on the earth as normal day-to-day life,
Mm.
And that's what kind of led me into where I'm at now.
Wow, I agree with you. I agree with you because I see sometimes this whole institution that we call as church becomes a kind of performance zone where you just perform, but then you don't relate to people. You don't have that relationship and connections. So I agree with what you're saying because relationship is so important. I say to people, the doctrine doesn't matter. What matters is the real maturity of a son is seen when he says that for me, relationship matters, not the opinion differences, doctrinal differences, and all that stuff. Wow, that's amazing. So now you are having your own home, a house church, and you are. I see on your Facebook you mostly focus on bringing people into identity and into their identity and to recognize their whole purpose, right?
Yeah.
Why
So,
why so why so why are you so interested in this? What
um,
what what's your purpose? What do you think?
well, I'll tell you how I ended up here. So 3 years ago, I ended up with a group of people that do not want to stay in the church they were in because I was part of that church too because there was no connection. So when I left, they started asking me, "Why are you leaving?" And I didn't want to cause an issue, but they tried to build connection with whoever was running that church, and there was no room to build connection. So they kept saying to me, "Wherever you're going, we're coming, we're going." So I was stuck because I knew if I start something, they're all gonna spread things about me, and that was when I had that breakdown, and the Lord really came and showed me some things, and so I decided to walk with these guys. So we had only 15 to 20 people, and for the last 2.5 years, nearly three, we've been walking through a lot of healing for these guys, a lot of understanding the difference between kingdom and church, churchianity, Christianity. What did Jesus preach? What did man create? What is the difference?
Mm,
And so we've walked out so much healing. But one thing God said to me was, in 3 years, these guys need to find their runway and they need to fly. And I was like, "What do you mean, Lord?" And he was like, "Every person in this house gathering all have a vision from me. They have a blueprint from me. They are not meant to just serve your vision. You are serving their vision. When they start to understand who I am and what I'm calling them to do, I'm going to open doors for them. And I want you to get them prepared to fly through their doors." And
mm,
so we are 5 months away from that deadline that God gave me. And
wow.
each one of the people have made it through. We have not lost one. They have all walked through healing. They've all walked through not being offended into love. And now they're all expressing their God given purpose. They're starting to look for it and step into it. So this subject's important to me because when this lockdown happened,
Mm,
I was running a gym. So I've been running a gym now for 8 years. And a month before the lockdown finished, the Lord said to me, "You need to hand in your resignation here." Like the gym that I was running was for a business park. And He said, "Take your business out of there. Your time here is finished." So I said to them, "Okay, in a month I'm leaving." And at that time, there was no lockdown, nothing. And the last week that I was in the gym ended up being the lockdown. And so now
wow.
all gyms were shut. So the timing was crazy amazing.
Wow.
But I started to go on these little walks with Jesus. I call them J walks. And sometimes when it's hard for me just to sit down, I like to go for a walk. And he talks to me so much on the walk. And he said to me there, "Son, I called you to be a purpose mobilizer." And I said, "What do you
Wow.
mean, Lord? Like a purpose preacher?" And he said, "No, not a purpose preacher, a purpose mobilizer." There are many people that preach purpose, they talk about purpose, they talk about assignment, but they don't know how to take people step by step into their assignment. And he started to show me my whole life, my childhood, how I've always been a mobilizer. Even as a personal trainer, I'd get people and they can only do 5 push-ups, and I take them to 7, then to 9, then to 11, all the way up to 25.
Hmm.
And he started to show me. So it was like a real revelation for me just 4 or 5 months ago how much this is in me, in my blood.
Wow.
And then he spoke to me about this challenge called Pursue on Purpose, and we call it the Pop Challenge. And I had 240, 250 people go through it the first round, and then another 200 and something people the second round. And I'm about to do my third round in a week and a half from now.
Wow.
So
So these are people all around the world, right? It's an online coaching that you're doing, right?
correct. So we have people from the UK, from America, Sri Lanka, from Nigeria that tuned in, from Pakistan that tuned in,
Mhm.
Fiji, some of the Pacific Islands, and then obviously New Zealand. Yeah.
And so, what are the things that you do in this whole program?
So I start to bust down the myths. I think one of the biggest myths that people have is that your purpose has to be some kind of like, angel show up and give you a scroll and shake you, and
Mm-hmm.
it's one of the biggest myths. And so I start helping people unlearn some of the religious stuff that we've learned. Your purpose is something that's in you. You were born with it. God put it in you before you even came here. And as you start to allow that to come out, you start to step into your purpose. And I spend 8 days with people every day. I go live in the morning. I do a session, and then they do homework. There's always homework, because if you don't take action, nothing's going to happen. And so they all take action. They do live videos, and they share their journey. So I've had pastors, people who've been pastors for years, come into our group and start to really open up and be honest about their situation.
Mm-hmm.
My first session that I do is actually called Living in Truth, because if you can't tell the truth, there is no freedom. And that session itself has brought a lot of people deliverance, and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people freedom. And my whole heart is that people would understand how simple it is to engage your purpose. And so I have a framework I go through, and the most important thing for me are these two words: explore and engage. So I
Mm-hmm.
teach people that as a son of God, as a child of God, you have freedom to explore. And as you're exploring all the things He's put inside you, learning to engage them. I find a lot of people are scared to make mistakes. They're scared. What if I do it wrong? What if I mess things up? And their fear keeps them bound for 10, 20, 30 years, never taking action. And so
Wow.
what's happened from this challenge is people have started writing books and launching businesses and launching different kind of ministries.
Mm.
Today I had a conversation with a girl who God's been giving her a vision of a karaoke bar, and she was
Wow.
scared because she's like, it's a bar. Like, how can I have a bar? Like, there'll be alcohol, but then I'm seeing the kingdom come into this karaoke bar.
Mm.
But she's now starting to explore the idea, and she's going to engage it, and she's going to do her first karaoke night in the next 3 weeks. And so people are now getting so free to be able to bring in the solutions, the innovations that I believe God has put inside all of us. And that's kind of my main purpose. So I say this a lot. I say, I can't show you your purpose. No human can show you your purpose. But I will help you unlearn and remove all the cobwebs and all the lies you believe, so you can see purpose for what it is. That's
Wow.
kind of my main goal.
So the people who join in or tune into the program, are these people more Christian, or anyone from any religion can step into it? Or you are?
Well,
Mm.
anyone can step into it, but if you are really affiliated and love religion, then you might hate some of this program, because I am deconstructing a lot of that. So
Mm.
a lot of people who seem to come are people that have been burnt by religion or hurt by religion, or they feel like they've never fit into a church system. They feel like they have something awesome that God's put in them, but anytime they tried to express it, it was shut down. They've never had a room to explore anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of the people that are coming here are these ones who've been by themselves for a long time. They love Jesus, but they've not been going to church, and they're stuck. They're confused.
Mm.
Most of the people who come in here seem to be like that.
So how long is this whole coaching that you do?
So the challenge is a free challenge. It goes for 7 or 8 days.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of that, some people choose to go into a proper coaching uh, season with me, that goes for about 8 weeks after that.
Mm-hmm.
But our community is like a family. We're exploring how to do online hubs, just like offline house church. Even
Mm-hmm.
that term house church, I think that term also has been overused, and now people just take church and put it into a house and call it a house church. But actually, a house church is not like church.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important to differentiate the two. And so we're looking at doing online hubs all around the world also, and just helping people step into the kingdom, because the truth is that the kingdom has everything, and
Mm,
everybody can connect to God, and everyone can walk with Him, and the anointing or Holy Spirit will lead them all in what they need to do. And
mm.
I'm trying to provide a safe environment for people to do that.
Wow. So the whole that I see that it's more kingdom oriented, and the whole thing is, what do you do? What's your purpose in the kingdom, right?
Yeah, so and that's one of the days that we go, what is purpose? We go into purpose and we talk about how purpose is original design. It is the original reason, original intent of why
Mm,
you were made. Everything has a purpose, so it's not necessarily in the kingdom, out of the kingdom. Once you start to really know who you are, because purpose
mm.
is who you are, not what you do. Once you know that, then everything else flows from that place. So I'm not really looking to help people find what they should do. But what usually happens is, as they learn who they really are and how easy it is to just be with God, the doing just happens. It just seems to be a byproduct.
Yeah, so basically recognizing your identity, uh, and just uh, doing what you are, you see. So,
Yeah.
so for the viewers who are watching us, uh, you see, I see, I'm pastoring a church, but I see, like, people out there, they really don't have anything. I mean, they do have a purpose, but the purpose, what they think that is their purpose, is very fragile. You see, like, if I ask somebody what's your purpose, so they'll say it's just, no, it's just about having children, get married, have children, that's it. So, do you think that can be a purpose, or there is something deeper to it?
This is
So
a,
is
it's
it,
a,
you see, it's everybody says, like, what are you doing? Why are you doing what you're doing? So the general answer you will get, it's like, I'm doing a job to make money. I just want to get married. I just want to have a good family, and that's all. And then I'm going to be done with this world.
yeah. And so these are the things that I go at in the challenge.
Mm,
You weren't born married. You weren't born a mother or a father. You were born you.
wow.
You didn't come birth with all this stuff. This is a privilege you get to have. Like, it's a privilege. I get to be married and I have a wife and I have children. But that can't be my purpose. That is part of my experience on the earth, and I enjoy it. It's a blessing. But
Yeah,
I came wired with something to release on the earth
yeah.
that has nothing to do with anybody else. So whether you're married or you're single, you never get married, you're divorced, all of this is irrelevant. There is still something for you to release. I
Yeah,
believe that. Pardon?
yeah, I completely agree with you. And the main reason I feel that people break down in life, the main reason that people, sometimes they end their life, I believe, because they make uh, their job, some people in their life, as their purpose. So when they go away, they feel their life is over, their purpose of life is gone, you see. So
Yep.
I agree with you. What you're saying is, you see, many people out there, they just break down because they think the one whom they love is their purpose, or they think their job is the purpose. And when, god forbid, when it goes away, they think their life purpose is over, and
Yeah.
so I need to end my life. So you see, in India, there's recently this whole thing going on, about, now this whole hype about suicide is going on, because there was a very Bollywood actor who who committed suicide. And
Yeah.
you see, then the whole question, this consciousness have come into India, where people are questioning, and people are discussing and talking about suicide and ending up
Yep.
life. You see, many youngsters I see, they speak about, okay, I'm going to commit suicide, just because the person whom I loved has left me, has ditched me, and all that stuff.
Yep.
And now during the lockdown, people are becoming more lonely, more, you see, I see a lot of mental issues coming up in
Yep.
this lockdown, a lot of psychological issues coming down, and it's all, I believe, is pertaining to people not recognizing their purpose.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
I would totally agree with you.
so what do you have to speak about this thing to these people?
So, New Zealand actually has the highest youth suicide rate in the world. I don't know if you know that.
Oh no, I don't know about this. This is
And
new.
that is per capita. Like as a population, we're really small, but per capita, we have the highest
Oh,
youth suicide rate. But if you come and see this nation, that makes no sense. Like this is probably the greatest nation you can live in. Like even right now, through the lockdown, everything, the way we've been taken care of, like in the West, I think people can complain a lot, but really, like when I look at New Zealand, I'm like, what an amazing country. So a few years ago, God started speaking to me about suicide, and that's also part of my purpose journey. Is I've created a workbook, and I'm trying to go into schools to help young kids start to explore purpose. See,
oh.
what happens when suicide becomes the subject is everyone becomes aware of suicide, and it's just death, 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 death. So if you tell me, hey, don't die, okay, that's fine. What should I do then? And then people are just stuck in, okay, I won't die, but then what? And no one is leading them to know there is life. Because if I choose life, I by default am saying no to death. But there's
Mm,
not enough people talking about life. So my whole mission is helping people look and see, hey, what are your gifts? What are your talents? What is your life's training?
mm,
Whether you know God or you don't know God,
mm,
you are wired to do something in a way that nobody else can do. You
mm,
were created so unique. 7.5 billion people on the earth, nobody looks like you. You have different fingerprints, different thumbprint, different footprints, different lip prints. Even the
mm.
swirls in your eyes are different. Your
Oh,
tongue, the grooves in your tongue are different. You know, we can all sing the same national anthem, but we all sound different. There's
mm,
a different voice print. It's like God made you so unique because there is something that you need to release. And so when people hear this message, they really get excited because inside them,
mm,
they know this, but no one's there trying to talk them into it, you know? And
mm.
so when I go into schools, I bring all of this up. Like from when you're a child, you are taught to shut down your expression and become like everybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might be your parents, it might be your relatives tell you to be like your cousin, be like your uncle, be like this person, be like that person.
Mm,
Then you go to school, and then you all have to wear the same uniform, do the same subjects, sit the same test. It doesn't matter if you have a different skill, you have to sit this test. And if you fail this test, I will tell you you're useless, even though you're a genius over there. I
mm.
don't care. And we are taught to fit in the system, and it kills the very original expression that God's put in all of us.
Wow.
And so when I'm meeting people, I'm constantly breaking some of that down, and everybody knows this is true because as a child, you know this stuff, and it gets conditioned out of us, as we're growing up.
Wow. This
So
is awesome. This is truly awesome. So, why do you think people, the youngsters, are committing suicide in New Zealand? Though I see it's such a beautiful country. It's so awesome.
I honestly, I agree with you. I think it's because there is no understanding of self-worth, of identity, which leads to purpose. There
Mm,
is no talk of that in most houses. The family unit has been broken down in many ways, and there is no one talking about how special people really are. And
mm,
especially these days with social media and the fake filters and the fake likes and the fake conversations, there's no one having real conversations and
mm,
real heart-to-heart engagement.
yeah.
And another problem is that these organizations, they begin to help people, but once they start getting funding, they don't look to see is what we are doing working. It's
Mm,
just like religion. Like in many ways, man, like if you go to most churches and you check like I'm not saying church is a business, by the way, but I'm just saying if you check the performance in a sense, like you just check
mm,
efficiency, let's say efficiency. Hey, how efficient is this church at doing what the Bible says? Nobody asked this question because everyone is scared of the results.
mm,
And I think that's a problem. And so it's the same thing here. Like that no one is actually asking the real questions, because when you ask the real questions, there's judgment.
mm,
People point finger at you, and you you have to be willing to take the hits,
Mm,
and I think that's one of the biggest issues here.
yeah, I agree with you. And I think when your life becomes mechanical, that's when you start losing your purpose in life. You see, I was teaching in a college in Goa, but then suddenly I saw a shift and I started getting inclining to my passion. So I started learning music at this age, like 3 4 years back, and then I started teaching music. So you see, there was a shift, but I had to come out of my box to pursue my passion. Then I had to leave. I left my job and started teaching music to children, and I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying to see children grow up and be a product of what you have, fruit of what you have taught them. So I agree with you. When life becomes mechanical, that's when you start losing. And uh, I think Japan has highest rate of suicides also.
Yeah,
But if you see the life of Japanese people, they have something like they are very work oriented. You will
yep,
see them whole day and night in their office,
yeah,
and for them, their work is everything. And
yeah,
they have made that as their purpose. Uh, so when the something happens in the work, when the job goes away, all they think of ending up their life. So
yeah,
I had an experience just recently. I had this wonderful bird, a parrot, who would come to my house every day from my neighbor, and I built a connection with the bird. And one day the parrot just dies, and like I was literally in tears, and I'm like, what's this purpose of life? So when somebody dies, so uh, when you lose something, this question always comes to the mind: what's the purpose?
yep.
What's your
What is
purpose?
the point?
What's the point?
Yeah,
In being into this world, and if ultimately we are all going to die. So
yeah.
would you like to share something on this? This question that comes in somebody's mind.
Yeah, I think that comes in all of our minds, comes in my minds too. Sometimes when I'm having a rough time, rough day,
Hmm.
and I think this becomes the plumb line. It becomes a plumb line where I get to choose to come back to what I do know. See, one of the problems is when you get sucked into what you don't know, you can just get in a vortex because there's so much we don't know, and it's really important to be able to come back to what you do know in moments like that. And
Hmm.
so I resonate with you. There are times when I'm like, well, what's the point? I hear some of these prophecies of what's happening and some ideas. And I'm like, well, what's the point of life? But
Yeah.
when I come back to my plumb line of, no, I was created with a purpose, for a purpose, on purpose. That before God made me, He wrote a whole book. My days were written. There was purpose in my very being. As soon as I come back to that place, suddenly my ability to see switches, and it happens really fast.
Mm,
Because I think when a person starts to operate in their God-given assignment, in their God-given purpose, you start to have supernatural energy. Like there is
wow.
a different kind of alignment that happens in your life. Everything starts to become easier. It becomes effortless. Like your decision making is easier because even though there's so much screaming at you, because you know your plumb line, you don't get distracted anymore. You don't waste energy on comparing yourself to people or on trying to assess your life. Like, I'm 34 now. Did I do everything a 34-year-old should do? And you don't go down that track anymore because now you've found your plumb line and you start enjoying it.
Mm,
Like when I get into the subject and when I'm standing in front of 200, 300 kids and I'm speaking about their life, I get so charged up. I wish there was a way for me to measure my charge, because sometimes I can go into a situation down, and as soon as I get into this subject and in what I was born to do, I come out like as though I just had energy drinks. Like
mm.
even now, it's 8:30, but the subject is charging me up,
Yeah.
and so I think I think that's a big thing. Now you mentioned Japan, and I know the adults in Japan there's a high suicide rate, but there is also a Japanese concept in a small part of Japan. It might be Okinawa, I'm not sure, but they talk about this thing called ikigai. And
Mm.
ikigai is a concept that's based on four principles that will help a person stay focused on why they're here instead of what they're doing. And so there's research that showed these Japanese people in that one place who focus on the subject live much longer and have a
Wow.
much better life, quality of life.
Wow.
And so those 4 points are around what do you love? What do you love to do? What does the world need? What is the problem you're solving? And how can you serve? And I think the fourth one is around getting paid for it. These
Mm.
four things. And
Mm.
I might be butchering it right now. I almost want to pull up the diagram, but you can research that ikigai. You can research it. So they really
Wow.
focus on that, and they have a better quality of life when they can answer those questions.
Wow. Awesome. Uh, and these people who do your programs, what are the testimonies they come up with? What are the results that you're seeing?
So this is the part that's blown my mind because I've understood kingdom. I've understood kingdom in the sense of a Pentecostal church. I've understood kingdom in the sense of mystical experiences and healings and all this kind of amazing stuff. But I never understood kingdom in the sense of ecosystem and in the
Mm.
sense of efficiency. I
Mm.
am starting to see this ecosystem of the kingdom. So Jesus comes and his only message is repent for the kingdom of God is here. So there is a new ecosystem. Will you plug out from the world system into my system is what God is saying. So every believer, if you're still plugged into this system and you're trying to get these results, you will be frustrated for the rest of your life. And so what happened with this challenge is I just obeyed God. I started this challenge. People's marriages started getting healed. I'm
Wow.
not talking about marriage. I'm not even bringing
Wow.
up the subject. And um, so in one story, this woman, her husband at the end of the challenge, he didn't even do the challenge. She did
Mm.
the challenge. At the
Mm.
end of the challenge, he brought the whole family together and he repented to all of them for his behavior over the last few years. And he's reconciled
Wow.
the whole family. I mean, that was a crazy testimony for me. People getting set free of, having um, oppression in their mind, self hatred, lust, getting delivered just from hearing truth. And the truth is setting them free. And
Wow.
so even doors opening for people, different business doors or jobs or chances to go to different places. Just the kingdom's doing it. Like no man can take credit when people just step into the kingdom. And that's why I'm getting more and more passionate about just helping people step in and watch what happens.
Wow.
This is greater than any man could ever do for you.
It's amazing.
And yeah.
It's amazing. I like what you again and again speak. You try to bring kingdom consciousness. So I look at the semantics of kingdom, and some people are heaven consciousness. So like for them, people who are heaven consciousness, it's for them, come on, let's believe in Jesus, and after that, you see, one day you're going to be heaven. So whole purpose is go to heaven. My whole purpose is going to go, I need to go to heaven. But the kingdom consciousness, or the concept that you're speaking about, is about living now. Your purpose is about now. So that's an awesome thing that you really bring out to people, because the moment you speak about the kingdom, the person become conscious about uh, his purpose now, and enjoying his life right now, and experiencing his life right now. Wow. So one question to you is, what do you think is the biggest hurdle for oneself when it comes to realizing his purpose?
Man, the biggest, it's so hard. That's why I have an 8-day challenge. you know, um, but I will tell you that religion and traditions of man are always the biggest killer of every unique expression that God has put. I've spent weeks with certain people helping them to step into the freedom of expression, the freedom of being you. John the Baptist, there is no room for a John the Baptist in the church today. I mean, you imagine a crazy kind of guy with camel's hair and eating locusts and honey. There's a reason he was in the bush, but it was a total God given mandate, God given assignment. And so I think the traditions of man and the religious system is the biggest enemy because it puts so much fear and self doubt. I mean,
mm,
if you want to stop someone from doing something, just make them doubt and then leave,
mm,
and they'll just keep doubting, and it's over. So I force people into action in my group. In the 7 days, I force you into action. I'm like, if you do the wrong action with the right heart, God will take care of you. Keep your
mm,
heart right and go. And go. Paul the apostle was Saul from Tarsus, and
mm,
he was serving God zealously. And
mm,
he was serving God. That's what he thought God wanted. He was killing people, persecuting people mercilessly, but it was zealous for God. And
mm,
when God can find a person like that, he will redirect you. He will turn you where you need to go. But he can't make you move like that.
mm,
And so in churches, I see so much we have, like in Christianity, we've bred consumers, we've bred
mm,
people that don't need to take action, and I think that's a problem. So I believe that coaching in 2020 is like discipleship from
mm,
the Bible. You
mm,
pay a price. Back in the day, they would pay a price by leaving everything and following their rabbi. Today, you might pay a price of a couple of $100 to learn from somebody.
mm,
And then there is a line that one of my mentors says all the time. Bruce McDonald, you met Bruce.
mm. Yeah.
He says this line that someone taught him: people do not do what you expect, they do what you inspect.
Mm,
And that's why coaching is so important. And discipleship, like if you're in real relationship, there's a lot of inspection, and so there's so much growth because there's inspection.
mm.
And all of this kind of goes together. So I know I gave you a roundabout answer, but
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you mean by discipleship?
I mean
So
deciding to, go.
because because you see, when somebody hears the word discipleship, sometimes it tend to be followers.
Mm,
You see, I'm against following. In a sense, I agree that people need to follow you, but then in the process of following you, they need to get discipled.
yeah.
You see,
So when I say disciple, I don't mean disciples of Joseph or disciples of Vernal. I mean
mm,
disciples of Jesus.
mm,
And so when I talk about discipleship, it's like my life should be lived in such a way that people who've just come into the kingdom are able to see what's happening in the kingdom and become disciples of Jesus themselves. Does that
mm,
make sense? So my
yeah,
goal is not, I'm not saying you should get 100 people who, or
yeah,
20 people who they become disciples of Vernal. And I
mm,
think that in Christianity, this has been one of our stumbling blocks because
mm,
pastors have taken responsibility of a group of people in a level that they never needed to. They're not supposed to. No human can do that. I can't, if I make disciples of me, I'm
mm,
stepping into a place which I am not born to, like, I cannot, what's the word, sustain that. It's too much. My job is just to show them who Jesus is, show them who God the Father is, show them Holy Spirit, and walk in the kingdom lifestyle in such a way that they learn some things, and eventually
mm,
I'm not needed in their life, and we get to be disciples together, because we both are disciples of Jesus.
mm. Wow. So there are times when you say people have uh, like heroes in their life. They look upon them, and then sometimes they start leaving their purpose, not their own purpose. But they like, okay, I want to become so and so. I want to become like this man. I want to become like my pastor. I want to become like this prophet, or you see, and then they start uh, exactly mirroring them and behaving like them. Their
Yep.
talks, their walks, everything is uh, like them.
Yep.
So how do you think it's healthy, and if it is not healthy, then um, why it is not healthy?
I think that that is not God's original intent. And so anything that's outside of original intent, which is outside of purpose,
Mm,
is automatically either abuse or
mm,
misuse or no use. When you don't know the purpose of something, that's what happens to it. It gets abused, so it's used in the wrong way, or gets misused, like, that way, or not used. And
mm,
so I know what you're saying, but the way I look at it is actually in a maturing process. And I think a lot of people don't spend enough time understanding a maturing process. So, you know, um, there is a part where Paul says, imitate me as
mm,
I imitate Christ.
mm,
But he says, imitate me. And I believe when someone's a new believer, they're like a baby the baby is going to imitate you. But if you are doing a good job at just helping them mature, eventually they will move out of imitating you into finding their own expression.
Mm,
But what I think happens is if I'm an insecure leader or insecure father as a function, I'm talking about fathering as a function, not as a title. If
mm,
I'm fathering someone and I'm insecure, then I always want them to copy me because it makes my ego feel great, you know. But if I'm a real father, like my earthly father, at some point he's like, okay, Joseph, now you've lived under here, you've learned so much, but you also got to remember you got your own, and then we push them into their own, you know. So
mm,
I don't see this. I how do I say this? Yes, it's not a good thing if they copy people and da da da. But
mm,
I feel like as somebody matures, they will mature out of it. And if they're
mm,
not maturing out of it, there is a real problem. Does that make sense?
yeah, yeah, yes, of course. So,
You know, like if I listen to you, or if I listen to Kirby for a season, which I have,
mm,
or I listen to Chris Blackerby, or I listen to
mm,
Bobby Connor for a season,
mm,
or David Hogan, you know,
yeah,
you start to grab some of their language, you start to grab some of their ways a little bit, but then after a while you mature out of it, and you know, and
absolutely.
I just see that like, hey, I'm a 3 year old, I'm a 5 year old. You know, my 5 year old, she copies my lines and she copies
Mm,
all this. But when she gets to 10, 12, she's going to have her own lines, you know?
yeah,
And I think that understanding that we're all growing is so important, and we don't have enough of that in our
yeah.
circle.
I think it's yeah, it's so important that yeah, I copy so many people, and in my past, I have copied people whom I really revere. But then in the process, there was a certain period that I had to step out and come with my own unique originality, uh, with the help of all that I learned from those people. So I feel that's so important, and not to get stuck by just copying somebody and make your whole life. And then when you do that, there are more chances of you getting offended, and then living out your whole purpose in life. That's amazing. I see in
Yeah.
the present, like, I come across so many people when they come to church. I see it's more consumer based. You see, why do you go to church? Why do you go for prayer meetings? I just go to receive something. I just want to receive it, and then when there is a time for the same people to learn something, and I have this heart that people don't just come to me to receive things, but also do things, go out there and do things in their life. Uh, so
Yeah, I'm back.
yeah, so you see, I believe in people going out, not just becoming consumers, but going out and learning new things and then doing things themselves. So I see many a times the people who are consumers, they just don't want to learn. They just want to go ahead. They just want to receive their blessing. Like for example, they come to church. I want my healing. I get healed. That's it. Then there is some next need that they want. I want certain thing to happen in my life. They come. So I see this pattern of people really not. There is no need for them to recognize their purpose. The
Yeah,
only need I see is to get what they want in life.
yeah. And I think we are to blame for that because we've built a structure that empowers that, you know.
Mm.
One of the reasons I'm a fan of smaller groups meeting is because you cannot hide. And you can't, there is no room to hide, there's no room to pretend. Everybody speaks, you know. And that's why I'm saying a church in a house is not a house church, because if you bring a church in a house, there's still a worship leader, there's still a pastor, he's the one doing the teaching, there's still people that just sit down,
Mm.
listen, and they can hide. But I believe a real house church is there's eating, there is drinking, there's conversation, there's supernatural, there is everybody sharing a little piece of what they're getting from the word or their week, and there is a real submitting to one another, honoring one another. And I still think there is going to be a leader there. There's still going to be, but people will choose the leader. The leader doesn't have to choose a title. And I
mm,
think that's very different. We speak a lot about unity, and the church needs unity, body needs unity, but we're not addressing the fact that if you want true unity, there must be true freedom. Like for
mm,
me to be united to Vernal, I need to know that I can walk away from Vernal at any time and it's okay. But I
mm.
choose him. If I don't choose you, we don't have unity. We just have compromise. Like if
Wow.
I'm coming to your church because otherwise I'm going to hell, I
Mm,
didn't choose you. I'm just trying not to go to hell.
mm,
If I'm coming to church on Sunday because God's going to be angry at me, I didn't choose you. I didn't choose anyone in their building.
mm,
So there are people that organize 1,000 people praying together. But if you're coming because you're scared, you're coming because, oh, if 1,000 pray, God will answer. But if two pray, he won't answer. Whatever reasons, if there's no freedom, there is no unity. Because
mm,
unity is a choice. And I think people don't talk about that enough.
mm. So basically, a church is more like a family.
Supposed to be.
Yeah.
I love that Jesus grabs these 12 guys. He grabs the unqualified guys, and then he tells them, "Come and live with me." I mean, I don't know how many
Mm,
senior pastors you'll know that will say, "Hey, come hang out at my house."
yeah.
I know people, who've been around the circle 10, 20 years, have never, they don't even know where their pastor lives, but
Mm,
they will call him their pastor. Like, I think that's a problem, like, um, it's like I see you running with your members of your church and
yeah.
running with your like you're training with them, exercising them,
Mm,
like that is. I think it's good to do life together.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. I see there's so much of liberty. Like there's, I feel that's true deliverance. You see, because for me, it's more about building the kingdom. For me, is about relationship. I don't look at kingdom as a, the word is ecclesia, means governance, but I don't look at it as how the earthly governance is, where there is whole structure of hierarchy. But the kingdom, when I look at it, I look at it as family. And I think when we are more family oriented, I think we become more influencers, we become more people who can influence. Like there are some people who come to our church not just because to see some healings, miracle, but just because of the relationship that we have. You see, just to hang around,
Yeah,
to have relationship and all this stuff. So that's so important. And I love what you said, where Jesus said, "Come live with me." You see, I love that thing what you said, and I see that present. You that you see so much of there's only words out there, like people speak about spiritual fathers, but the father doesn't even know who you are. So
that's right.
somebody in Africa, somebody in America, they call them spiritual father just because they love the person's gifting, the love
Yep,
person's anointing. But that guy doesn't know you. How can you say he's your spiritual father?
that's right.
Yeah.
And it's still the same system. You like a Babylonian system.
Mm,
It's still, I'm in relationship with you for what I'm gonna get,
mm,
nothing else but what I'm gonna get. And I think in church culture we've allowed a lot of that to be bred. Like
mm.
I think it would be very lonely to be so gifted that everybody wants you, but actually nobody wants you for you. And
Wow.
once somebody comes with a better gift, you know, I'm
Mm.
going there now. Like you can prophesy 6 digits of my bank account, but he's giving me 8. Like goodbye. You know, it's like because the connection, and I think it's so significant that John, in the Bible, John's the only guy left,
Mm,
and John's the guy who had his head on Jesus's chest. Like he was after something else,
mm,
and you see, like Peter wants to know what Jesus is thinking, and he's asking John, "Hey, ask him." Everybody could see that this guy was going with something else. It was relational equity, and so there's this transactional equity and relational equity. And religion loves to operate on transactional equity. It
mm,
calls transactions relationship. I'll honor you, you prophesy over me, and I'll be great. I'll give money to your church, you bless me, and transactional equity. But
mm.
actually, in the kingdom, it's only relational equity, and there's no greater love than this, that you lay down your life for your friend.
Wow.
And when I think as a body, when we start understanding that, the power of what's about to happen is going to be crazy.
I really admire this. Yeah, I appreciate what you're speaking. I believe a lot of people's mind are going to get enlightened by what you have shared today. This is amazing stuff, man. This is amazing. I really honor this. So, yeah, I think we are almost 1 hour.
Yeah, yeah.
And just time just flew. But you know, would you like to say something, just in general? What is there in your heart before we just close this thing up?
Yeah, I just want to encourage every person who's going to listen to this to start to do two things: explore and then engage your God given purpose. It is time. Whatever's going on in the world, there's a lot of crazy things, and whatever your views are on end times, your purpose is not disqualified. That's the reason you are here. You know,
Mm.
Jesus only lived 33 and a half. Like, I've lived longer than Jesus. I
Mm.
have lived, like some of you guys, you've lived longer than Jesus. It's really important that you understand you came here for a reason,
Mm.
and you didn't come here for you. You know, I believe every person's purpose is wrapped up in a gifting, and when you have a gift, the gift is not for you, it's always for someone else. You know, if I'm a good singer, I don't just sing in the shower just for myself. It is for someone else. If I can write poetry, if I can write poems, if I'm good at motivation or good at whatever, movies and arts, entertainment, business, whatever, it's always for someone else. And so somebody is waiting on you. Somebody's life is actually dependent on you showing up, and they don't know till you show up. You know, this thing is much bigger than you realize. And so I want to encourage you to start to pursue that. Ask the Father, like, why did you bring me here? Why am I here? Show me. I want to walk it out. And I believe you will see so much favor come on your life. And now when I say favor, I don't mean just like more money and you get a big bank account and do what you want. I mean every area of your life, in your relationships, in your soul health, your soul prospering, your body prospering, everything starts to line up. You know,
Wow.
and along with that, you should get persecution. If you have no persecution, you are not in your God-given purpose. I
Amen.
believe that part of the abundant life is persecution, because the abundant life was designed to make you look like Jesus. Everything in the abundant life is you becoming exactly like Jesus. And Jesus was persecuted, he was slandered, and they fought against him, said all kinds of things. It's got to happen to you too, because that is how you choose to respond in love, and you become more and more like your real rabbi. So I want to
Wow.
encourage you to chase your purpose. It is time. Let it come out.
Come on, preach it, man. Preach it. This was awesome. Awesome, man. Awesome.
And
Really
thank
love
you.
this.
Thank you for having me.
I really love this podcast, and yeah, I'm really uh, all that you have spoken takes me in introspection and makes me think more deeper on my purpose also. The word says, without vision people perish.
Yeah.
In other words, without purpose, the reason your life is going down and it's perishing is because you don't have a purpose in life. So it's
Yeah.
high time, and as this lockdown is going on, it's the best time. In fact,
It
is
is.
Corona is the best time for you and for me to sit back, look at life, look at and say, Lord, show me your purpose, reveal my purpose, and still, if you can't help, if you need help to understand your purpose, we have Joseph Wilson.
Yeah. Yeah. Join our free challenge. It's free. You got nothing to lose, except for your religion and baggage. You start flying, man. Second Peter 1:10, I think, says to make your calling and your election sure. The
Yeah.
Bible tells you to do that. And most of you that are listening to me, you are not called inside a building. You are
Mm,
not called inside a building. Even the word ministry, it's just administration, and
mm,
you're administering heaven everywhere you go.
mm,
That's all of our jobs. We're all in ministry. It's
mm,
just some of our ministries look different. And so I just want to encourage you, like, jump in our challenge. We'll go deeper into it, and
mm.
yeah, I'm here to serve you whatever
So
way I
how
can.
how do they get in touch with you?
Well, on Facebook, you can find me, Joseph Wilson Fuse Life. You can find me there, add me on
We'll
there, and
yeah
PM
we'll
me.
we'll put the link also in our
Yeah,
Facebook and on our YouTube.
yeah.
And
And I have another link also, which takes you directly into the challenge where you can register. Once you register, you come into our group, And our group is really, it's about family. So when you come in, we encourage you to, do a video or a photo or tell people who you are, where you're from.
Yeah.
And the challenge begins on the 12th of July. So yeah, make sure to
Wow,
jump in before that.
that's awesome. It's the right time for the podcast today.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, it worked out well.
so yeah, Joseph Wilson also has a lot of podcasts. I think he has crossed almost 50 podcasts.
Yeah, we've done
And
50, yeah, 57 maybe 50. Yeah.
wow, I was one of the guests, and
Yeah.
I think I came two times.
Yeah. Two good discussions.
Yeah. So yeah, please go ahead and check out his podcast. Amazing. He's amazing as a host, and he has amazing guests coming on his podcast discussing some very good topics which can really bless you guys. So don't take it lightly. He's a his podcast a gold mine. You can just go ahead and get blessed. Yeah, so check it out. We'll be sharing the links in the description on our YouTube and on this Facebook of mine. Check all his stuff out, and if you need help, he is an awesome guy to help you. I can vouch for it. So go ahead and Joseph, thank you so much for this time once again. And you have such a good heart for the kingdom, and you're so you're carrying out the mandate of bringing out people's purpose into their life, making them understand. So I appreciate that. I honor that that what you carry, and I really pray a blessing on what you're doing, on the work of your hands. May God bless you and increase you, and may you go ahead and give your best in all that God has put into your heart. So bless you, Joseph,
And thank you so
and
much.
thank you once
And
again.
I honor you too, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. God bless you. Bye, guys. Bless you.
See you guys.